Good afternoon, folks. Robert Chapel, Executive Editor of Madison365 with your daily update for Monday, March 21st. It is Monday after a couple of months off. We're very happy to have once again Metcalf's Mondays returns. Metcalf's is a fourth-generation family-owned and operated market with stores in Madison at Hilldale Mall and behind the Westtown Mall and in Wauwatosa at 68th and State. Their sustainable seafood selection is unlike any other in town, with fresh deliveries coming in 6 days a week. You can order for pickup or delivery at shopmetcalfs.com anytime, which you might want to do because, technically speaking, there is still a pandemic happening and remote shopping is still a good idea. If you can get your groceries from Metcalf's without lingering inside the store, that's probably preferable. So let's talk about that for a second. But now I realize, and I know, and I've been paying attention, that things in Europe and some spots in Asia, as well as some spots here like New York, are seeing the beginnings of what might feel like a surge. Especially driven by that BA2 variant, which is the subvariant of Omicron. It's not Pi yet. It's not the new variant yet. It's BA2, which is a subvariant of Omicron. Remember Delta Plus? This is kind of Omicron Plus, and it is slightly more transmissible than Omicron. Remember, Omicron, reminding us all about things we don't want to think about, right? Omicron was like 5 times more transmissible than Delta. And sounds like this BA2 is about 30% more transmissible than OG Omicron, right? So we're going from 500% difference to 30% difference. So it's not a big jump in transmissibility. It does, however, seem like it's evading vaccine a little bit better and immunity. It's not more severe. Remember, Omicron was a big spike. It was very inconvenient. It was very disruptive. It sent a lot of people to the hospital, which is a big, big deal. But the deaths never came. I mean, there were some deaths. But there was never a big surge in deaths the way we thought there was going to be. So it might end up being kind of like flu, where a lot of people get really sick, but not very many people die, which is not ideal, right? But I want to be realistic about what we're talking about. However, here that has not hit Wisconsin yet. Okay, there are some BA2 cases here in Wisconsin, but we're not seeing anything like a surge at this moment. We are always a week or two behind the coasts, right? So if New York gets a big surge, we're going to get a surge next week. That's just how it's been going. So we will definitely continue to watch these numbers. Now, the numbers for today. What makes me feel okay, not great, is that when Omicron started in like mid to late December, we were still in the middle of the Delta surge when Omicron hit. Okay. We were at 3,800 cases a day when Omicron took us up to 15,000, 18,000. Right now we're at 350. Right. So even if those 350 cases become more transmissible and there's a little bit of a surge, it's not going to be an Omicron surge, I don't think. Because we're starting from a much lower level of infection. So that 350 cases per day includes 181 today, which is a pretty low number. The percent of positive test rate, when Omicron started, it was already at 13.5. Now it's at 2.7. 2.7% of all the tests that have been done are coming out positive. That is influenced by the proliferation of at-home testing. Right? A lot of folks are testing at home and then never reporting the result, whether it's negative or positive. Those don't get plugged into this data. Right? So this data is just what's reported to the state. Right? So I don't know that the at-home testing is in such huge volumes that's really making an impact on the data, but it's definitely having some impact. Right? But the good news is the test positivity rate, as we know from the state, is 2.7%. New deaths reported, confirmed on a daily basis, is 10. It's about what it's been for the past 3 weeks. Hospitalizations also way down. 224 people currently hospitalized. 43 of those in the ICU. Those are both down slightly over the past couple of days. Well, actually, they're down quite a bit since Friday, but just down a little bit since yesterday. Current in the state of Wisconsin, there are 211 ICU beds available. That was down to 39 at one point in the entire state. Right, so that is the hospitals are for the most part have the breathing room that they need at this moment. So again, we are carefully watching these mini surges, whatever you want to call them, in New York and in Europe and stuff, understanding that we're always a week or two behind. Also, we'll say that Wisconsin is not quite as vaccinated as New York. We are more vaccinated than much of Europe. There are really pockets in Europe that are really low vaccination levels. We are currently 60.6% of residents have completed the vaccine series. What we're not getting, I don't think, is good numbers on boosters. And we're also not getting good numbers on waning immunity, right? So if you got your 2 shots a year ago and never got another booster, you're probably vulnerable to a mild infection from this new Omicron variant. If you got COVID a year or 2 ago, you're probably vulnerable to this new variant, right? So and if you're unvaccinated, you're definitely vulnerable to it, and you're definitely vulnerable to be hospitalized or die from it if you're unvaccinated. So this BA2 variant could cause some problems, could be very disruptive. I don't think it's going to cause a lot of death in the vaccinated population, but it's concerning, right? We're going to keep an eye on it. For right now, we're okay. There's nowhere in Wisconsin that requires a mask at this moment. There are several, well, I shouldn't say that. There are no where the government requires a mask. There's some venues like Overture Center for the Arts, for example, still requiring masks at shows. Right. So there's still private venues that are requiring masks. There are private venues that are requiring vaccination status, proof of vaccination status. And that's well within their rights. So we will see what the effect of that is. I don't think any school districts are requiring masks right now. If I'm wrong about that, let me know. But I'm pretty sure most of the school districts went along with their local counties and stuff. So we will we'll see what kind of effect that has. The end of the mask mandate in Dane County has not had a meaningful impact in the 2 weeks since that's happened. We'll continue to keep an eye on it though. So we're going to take a short pause. I have so much arts news today, just complete by coincidence. That there's a lot of arts news today, and it's all great stuff. And we'll have that and more local news and a couple of pieces of news from across the state right after this word from the University of Wisconsin Division of the Arts. All right, so today we have a story out of my old stopping grounds in Platteville, Wisconsin. This is Carla Wages, who's a multicultural student advisor there. So Carla Wages in the middle, who's a social worker, finishing her PhD, and Jeremy Payne, who's also an instructor and social worker in Platteville. They formed the sort of the core of what they call the Black Platcom, the Black Platteville community. This is something that grew out of the summer of racial reckoning in 2020. It had been growing. I mean, we've known Jeremy since 2018 or so. We've been covering some stuff that they've been up to down there. But in June 2020, when everything was happening, they had their first Juneteenth celebration in Platteville. Now, I went to school in Platteville a long time ago. As you can tell by the color of my beard, it was a long time ago. And there were some Black students there, but not very many. There were very few Black people living there outside of campus. And there was no space for students to be, for Black folks to be, or any other marginalized folks to be. There was a Black Student Union, there's a Multicultural Center, Multicultural Students Club, or whatever, but not a space for them. So this organization, Sakara Wages, has this company called Subversive Social Work. Done some work here in Madison with the Progress Center for Black Women. And they are starting this, they've got a place and they're calling it Our Spot. And it's right in downtown Platteville. They got a grant from the state to open it up. They get secured the space. They're going to have a grand opening of one sort or another in early May, and you better believe I will be there. But it's going to be a spot just for people to unwind and not be institutional, right? Understand that kids come from Chicago to Platteville to go to school there and whatever, and they leave behind the big city and all the downside of the big city, but they also leave behind their support network and their family. So what Sakar told me was it's a lot of times when you let your guard down and when you can just like chill, that's when you can express what you need, and that's when you can start to get connected to resources. So it's a really cool idea, it's a cool concept, and I'm excited for Platteville. Also today, Rodlin May Banting has a story about the Institute for the Empowerment of Latina Women at Edgewood College. It's something that just started last fall. Dr. Beatriz Aguilar is a professor of music, started this last fall, hoping to get 10 young Latina women to take a 4-week course and empower themselves and learn some sort of soft skills and some career type things, you know. And as you can see, she got more than 10. She ended up with 40 students who went through this 4-week course. Rodlin May Banting talked with her about that, as well as some other folks that worked on it with her. And that story is on the website today at Madison365.org. Now, to get to some of the arts news, Madison Symphony Orchestra hired a new executive director. They actually, I apologize, we missed this last week. They announced this middle of last week, and we kind of missed it. But it's up now. It's Robert A. Reed is the name of the new executive director of Madison Symphony Orchestra. The executive director, as I'm sure you are, does the staffing and just basically runs the show. He's the sort of the CEO of a nonprofit organization. Doesn't necessarily work on the music part of it, but the fundraising, the staffing, all that stuff. He comes most recently from. He was the executive director most recently at the Plano Symphony Orchestra in Plano, Texas. He will begin. Rick Mackey, the former director, retired last June. And Robert Reed will start his duties in July. Also on the Madison arts scene, Ja Malik. I hope I'm saying that right. His name is Ja Malik. He is a dancer and a choreographer from Harlem. And he is the new artistic director of Madison Ballet. He's in town right now. He's choreographing. They have a performance coming up called Turning Point. And he is the choreographer of one of the pieces in that. So he's in town working on that. So I'm going to be talking to him later this week. But we still posted the announcement today that he has taken over for W. Earl Smith, who retired, who was the artistic director of Madison Ballet for a very long time, literally like over 20 years, I'm pretty sure Earl was there. But he retired recently, and so John Malik is the new artistic director at Madison Ballet, and we're very excited about that. And as I said, I'm going to be talking to him, as well as Jacob Ashley, who's the new director of the Madison Ballet School, who's also a Black man, who's a longtime veteran of the Madison Ballet as a member of the company, is going to be running the school. So I'm going to be doing something later this week on the 2 Black men who are now at the helm of Madison Ballet, which is fantastic. Continuing the arts, the Madison Black Arts Matter Festival is returning in person. And it has been not in person for the past 2 years for obvious reasons, but it is now going to be in person March 23rd through 26th. That is, Wednesday through Saturday. It's at the Wisconsin Union Theater. And it's an interdisciplinary arts festival dedicated to building community around Black arts and Black artistry. And attending the events costs anything from $10 to $50. There's poetry slams, there's visual arts, there's theater, all sorts of stuff. So all that is on the website now. Dave Dahmer has that story for us, Madison365.org. And finally today, we talked about Romy last week. Romy is from Madison. His name is his government name, as you would say, is Jerome Hunt. And he is from Madison. He's in Milwaukee now. He is a hip hop artist, a rapper. He's got an album coming out pretty soon, but he also dropped this track called Fear the Deer, which, as you could probably recognize, celebrates the fabulous success of your world champion Milwaukee Bucks. We did a story. Dave Dahmer did a story on the song itself last week or the week before. I shared the song with my son, who's 23, and like all his friends are all over it now. It's making the rounds of my son's friends. But it was just announced today, he's going to perform that song at halftime at the Milwaukee Bucks on April 7th. So if you're at that match, You can tell I'm a soccer guy. It's a basketball match. If you're at that game, watch for Romy at halftime. It's going to be fabulous. All right, that's the news I have for you today. Have a wonderful evening. Well, like I said, the COVID numbers here are looking okay, but elsewhere they're kind of not. So we'll definitely keep track of it for you. And until then, we'll have more for you tomorrow morning, and I'll be back tomorrow afternoon. Until then, have a wonderful evening. Enjoy that beautiful weather. Enjoy the extra hour of sunlight tonight. And we'll talk to you soon.
This is 365 Media.